Well, folks, Happy New Year. Here's our first show of 2026, the start of our, what is it? This
Amazing.
is our sixth year in this now?
Holy
I can't even
cow.
keep track of it. It's been
Jeez.
so fun that
Right.
I can't even keep track of it. Almost like my police career. We just passed up 25 years, which we talked about on the previous show.
Mhm.
But hopefully for everybody, your holidays went well and you're into the new year with a new hope here. How's it going for you, Scooter?
Good. Christmas was good. Standard family stuff, but it was nice. My mom and my brother and his family came into town, and as you can tell in my voice, I'm off to a great start health wise.
Mm,
I'm sure it has nothing to do with the weather here. Goes from -5 to 55 degrees in 3 days
yeah.
and back and forth. But yeah, starting the year off probably with a minor sinus infection. So
Well, but it's a kind of like a Brenda Vaccaro vibe I'm getting from you with that scratchy voice that our female listeners that are over the age of 40 might be really into.
I haven't gotten as far as Dusty Springfield yet, but
Right.
yeah.
There you go.
It's this is a half a pack a day voice for me, pretty
Yeah,
much.
right.
Then,
Filters.
right. It's filtered versus unfiltered.
Yeah,
I've got a menthol voice as well, but
transition down to the Virginia Slims because they're skinnier. But as you can tell, Chris is not here because you've heard of him by now. He's off taking care of business, which would be like
TCB.
any other New Year. Yeah, the Naples Mafia has at it down there with the king. But we're looking forward to the new year. It's same as the old year pretty much right now. Let's just see what happens. But we like to start the years out with some reminiscing of the previous year, and then what we can anticipate both personally and professionally for the profession into 2026. But I got a report, Scott, from Buzzsprout, who is our podcast like platform, so to speak, that Chris invested in. And I did a look at all the numbers from the get-go, and we're at 1.3 million downloads in less than 5 years, which is awesome. Never could have imagined it. We saw a real spike in 2025, though. Our numbers really doubled per episode, which puts us in the top half percentile based upon what I could find through research and download numbers, which is great. This is an organic show. It's from the earth, as they say. You know what I'm saying?
I've never been this popular.
Yeah, I've never been this popular. And I'm hoping video can help us. I can only detract. You know what I mean? But to me, I growing up, I used to love to listen to the radio with my father. There were great shows out there like Bob and Ray and AM
Paul
radio.
Harvey.
Yeah, before like FM came into being, it was about music. Before Rush broke in Cleveland and stuff like that. Did I tell you I'm going to see the Rush reunion concert this summer?
Are you really?
Yeah, in July.
Oh my God, I bet
at the
Karen's
UC.
so excited.
We're coming back. Yeah, she's not going. It's just me and two of the boys. Tim and Maddie are going.
Oh my God, that's going to be incredible.
And there's this like fine line. There's a spectrum for like that kind of music that Rush does, where there's like camps. And for some reason, Matthew loves Genesis, which
really,
whatever. It just goes to show you what a mad scientist God is in creating, the DNA. But there's some similarities between the Genesis crowd and the Rush crowd, and one of the big similarities is we don't meet women, which is kind of cool. So you can just be there and enjoy the music and not have to worry about distractions. But we're going to see that. But 2026, I'm looking forward to some things here. It's better to be optimistic. I can't control the future. I should stop regretting the past. I should live more in the moments. And that's my mantra for 2026, and be a much more forgiving human being so I can enjoy moments. But back to that, report that I got from Buzzsprout. Right. It was interesting to see, like, over the 5 years, where our listeners are and where they're from. Obviously, the vast majority of our downloads come from the United States because we're from the United States and we speak English and people can understand us. But the cities and how they broke down from, where we came from, at least as a group, was the Chicago area, but not our top city, to be honest with you.
No, we're
it's the Big Apple. And we had I think it's combined because it looks at boroughs in New York City, which are the size of some cities everywhere else. But when you combined all the boroughs, it's our top one. Number 2 is Chicago from the get-go. And number 3 was a shock to me. I couldn't believe it. As another city you'll see later on is a shock to me as well, as it's trending upwards, is Seattle. Yeah. And I was thinking if they did anything with this show, they piped it in there like it was like, Hanoi Hannah during the Vietnam War to try to demoralize the people at Chopped to make people think that cops are actually human beings and not these monsters.
Come into Chopped, streaming Three Cops Talk 24/7.
Right. So that's where we're going to do our first visit. Like when we go out on tour, we'll stop at Chopped. We're like in a blue tarp tent. We're like, Chris, we thought that this would be a little more professional, but
I'll have to dig out all my grunge clothes from the early to mid 90s.
Right. Yeah, Lane Staley, stuff like that, and reminisce. And then number 4 was Los Angeles.
Nice.
And 5 was Minneapolis, which
Really?
I don't know. I mean, I think in Minneapolis trends like every show, individual show download wise in the last few years, Minneapolis usually leads the pack for us. So they can end eventually in 2026.
Well, that's because of my Scandinavian heritage.
Yeah, right. And it's also, if you look at it just from a serious point, it kind of is ground zero for modern policing. The misinformation, all of the things we're going to talk about here in this show, really, politicized policing. Minneapolis embodies that more than any other city in America right now. And you see what's going on across the board as to what was going on up there. The racial inequities that everybody claimed police officers practiced in were not true. The policy that they followed and then didn't back. Politicians getting involved in everyday policing and like now turning it into something that's, politically driven way more than ever. So I think it's interesting that people from Minneapolis in that area want to hear from us a lot more because, or at least listen to it. Maybe they don't agree with that. I don't know. But the bottom line is it was really interesting to see that. And then it finishes out with Dallas, Houston, Philly, Phoenix, and Atlanta, which is our top 10 since we started doing this. So bigger cities across America only makes sense. But when you break it down to states, what do you think our number 1 state is, Scott?
I mean, it's so all over the board. I don't even know where.
Cali's number 1. It's really? Like a 10th of our download. It's a big state, obviously.
Right.
There's way more cities in there and download locations for that. But California, number 2 is Chris doing his part down there in Florida.
Nice.
Florida's number 2. Number 3 is Texas. 4 is New York. 5 is our Genesis state of Illinois.
Really?
Believe it or not. Well. And then Georgia.
Thanks, JB.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Georgia, Washington, Ohio, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, as people used to say where I grew up. Pennsylvania. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, it was really wild to see some of that. Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. We are big. Like they're crowded around a radio station like we're Little Orphan Annie or, War of the Worlds kind of stuff. Get your feet off the radio. But outside of the United States, Canada is our number 1, with Toronto being its number 1 city there. But we have a lot of Canadian listeners that, want to understand our language and 2, understand some of the policing concerns here in North America. But overseas, it was cool to see this one, at least from what the stats show. It was Germany. Germany's our number 1 in Europe when you get outside of that. Now, these numbers
that's because of you. You're connected back to the military.
German, right? Yeah, my military. Right. My appreciation for the Berlin police videos hopefully continues to grow. And it's shared. And Germans obviously understand way more English than we understand of German. But we all understand one thing as cops is that when you punch somebody in the face, they kind of have a tendency to pay attention to you and they're not listening, especially in crowd control environments.
Universal.
Yeah,
it's universal.
And it's really cool that they do it without their helmets on. You know what I mean?
It's so much more personal.
And people are like commenting about the roughness of the German police. And I would tell you, like, if you served in Germany, and the guilt associated with that nation for what happened in World War II is massive. Everywhere they go, they're called Nazis and things like that. When we, as cops, are like, oh man, they call us Nazis. They have no idea what it means. Right wing, they call us Nazis. They have no idea what it means. Well, when you're calling a girl from middle school when you go on a school trip outside of Germany a Nazi, I mean, there's everybody kind of gets that whole idea. But the other thing I look at it, flip side, this is me talking out loud. You maybe see those harsh tactics in Germany because maybe the German Polizei look at this and say, hey, we're not going to let this happen again. We're not going to let what happened to Jewish people happen again. Right. Because what they're fighting with and what these videos are all about are a group of people that have clearly established the fact that a global intifada isn't the answer, and maybe killing more Jews is the right answer. So maybe you look at that and you think, hey, we had guests that come on the show that talk about generational trauma. Maybe Germans are tired of constantly being associated with that and want to right the ship. Some people might think I'm an idiot. Some people will likely call me a Nazi for saying that. But when you look at that, hey, the police are trying to turn the tide for something that they see because they're on on the streets every day,
Right.
hearing what's being yelled at and everything else. So kind of neat. But
Yeah, and it's part of their history, and they're starting to realize that the police can have an impact on preventing or redirecting some of that stuff. You know what I mean? And again, not just by punching people in the face, but by getting back to a show of force through the police that, we're not going to allow these kinds of things to happen.
yeah, yeah. Well, when you look at like I said, I'm only an eighth German, but I'm mostly Irish, of Irish descent. Those numbers are pretty weak coming out of Ireland. No offense to anybody that's listening in Ireland. You guys got a lot going on there yourselves, but everybody in Europe does right now, it seems. But their numbers are really, really low, like less than, it's like a 0%. And Dublin, of course, leads. And I took a look at it. I said, well, let's see where Scott's at with Norway.
I don't know.
The Norwegians. Hold on a second. I can edit all this out. Norway, not North Macedonia. Well, they're about the same. But I would give that as probably a language barrier there as well. And
well, I'm looking to change that though next year because we're going to Norway next summer.
You know what you should do?
So I'm going to bring a lot of swag with and like.
Right, you should go out to Sandwich.
Talk stickers on stop signs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then what you can do is you can go out to Sandwich with all those Norwegian immigrants and start a daycare that you can get subsidized in Illinois that no one's paying attention to. Maybe get millions of dollars. It's like, wow, you see that nice car that Scott's got? What's up with that? Oh, that's what it's about.
Oh,
and slam the door in the face.
It's his daycare.
It's his daycare center for Norwegian children. That no doubt.
The Sons of Norway.
Right.
And Leif Erikson.
Right. But yeah, it was interesting to see that stuff. It was like I'd never really dug into it. I saw some trends and thought about it, but it's neat to see where our listeners are. We can't thank you all enough for tuning in weekly because those numbers stay pretty consistent, at least over the last 3 years. And like I said, our numbers have doubled to put us where we're at. Like, again, we don't reach out to anybody about anything other than, hey, if you want to talk to us, come talk to us. Or you want to give us some feedback, give us some feedback. We are like literally from the ground up, like organic, just talking about stuff. And, obviously so far it seems to be working because the numbers, at least in the podcasting world, seem to be pretty good for us. But, we'll keep going as long as we can hack it. And, I
think it's the video.
Is it the video?
It's a video. It just adds so much more to it to really put a face to the voice.
Right. Yeah. I'm not, video, hopefully someday I can get into that, but I really like the audio portion of that, like old time radio. But
people want to watch me drink coffee and eat cough drops.
Right.
Breathe in like a high school guidance counselor breath into my microphone.
Right. But you know what? With that, though, I'm really proud of the fact that you've taken off your COVID mask to conduct the interview, to conduct the podcast.
I said I was going to put it over the microphone because somehow that would show that
you're a good guy.
I care, that I'm a good person. Look,
right. It's like you're like Bitcoin. You're harvesting COVID from the internet. You're just running it so you can stay virtue signaling as long as humanly possible.
Right.
But it's a good day, man. We're moving forward here.
Chris
is doing some great stuff.
We appreciate everybody out there listening.
Yeah.
And
getting this out and getting
some of the nonsense that we talk about, as well as
as
well as the serious things that we talk about.
Yeah. And as always, like Chris always says at the end of every show, I can't quite do it with the Chicago accent that he does, but if you have any feedback, concerns, whatever, reach out to us. We love hearing from you. Like anybody that has reached out to us, and I'll tell you, just like most cases, it's not a ton of people. We've given them a forum. We've talked about what they wanted to talk about, or we've actually said, you want to come on the show and talk with us? Because, if you notice, we don't ask a lot of super important people. There's a lot of people that are trying to get a message out that write books that we ask to come on. Very rarely do we bring chiefs in that are trying to protect their reputations. They usually bring a good topic and we'll bring them on, something that's pertinent and something that keeps them realistic. And, my goal is Gordon Graham this next year. Scott, what do you think? Should we try to get Gordon Graham?
Yeah, let's do it.
I don't think he'd come on the show. He looks like the guy from Fractured Fairy Tales. You ever see that from back of the Bullwinkle, Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons? The guy that's cleaning up all the stuff. Anyway, I'll probably get.
I'm trying not to go into a hacking fit here.
Go for it. It shows the listeners your commitment to quality podcasting entertainment.
As a COVID survivor, I take this stuff seriously.
Yeah, and that's awesome.
But with and speaking of the new year, you found a good article on from the National Policing Institute of what law enforcement, well, actually, the 6 trends they call it to watch in American policing for 2026. And
Yeah.
some interesting stuff to touch on here, from their point of view. And so we were going to talk a little bit about this article and what the 6 topics are, and maybe provide a little bit of feedback on that. And again, this may or may not be the way things go for 2026. We're always talking about, the profession evolving and changing with politics and, national and international strife that's going on and all these types of things, plus just the changing workforce in this country. So this is a pretty good one. Because Sean's got the better pipes than me today. I'll let him get rolling on it. But we definitely,
Rarity here.
definitely some interesting topics in this to discuss.
Well, these are 6 topics that the National Policing Institute, which prides itself in pursuing excellence through science and which prides itself in pursuing excellence through science and innovation for law enforcement. We've read some of their articles and dealt with some of the things they've talked about in the past, but for 2026, they say that these are high profile, high stakes trends that they believe are likely to impact U.S. policing and public safety for 2026. And the first one is one that we've talked about for years now, and the workforce crisis deepens. And, obviously that means like recruiting, retention, and wellness of people that are on there. All of those things that, in the past, we just looked at recruitment. How do we get more people to come in here? How do we get people that are higher quality come in here? But at times it seemed like it forsake the people that actually came and stayed, you know what I mean? And then what were their lives like through wellness while they were here? They feel that that's going to continue to be a problem. And, there's a lot of changing trends here right now. One of the things that I think is that this idea that we can't get Gen Z people, we can't get these folks to come into our work. I don't know. Like I look at it and I see, the agency I currently work for does a great job of recruiting people. I don't care what anybody says. If my old ass could get picked up by these guys and feel like I belong, they do a great job of really going out and getting a full, group of people that come into our work. It used to be, when we were like, everybody was from the burbs. They were a white dude that grew up here, went to this school, went through this experience. And it kind of, although familiar and effective at times, it was also quite boring. You know what I mean? Like, and how did we, relate to the communities that we serve, that were expanding and growing and changing and everything else? And people can say this all they want, but urban centers are driving a lot of the changes in suburbs in and around these urban centers, as well as other states. The Southeast is seeing a ton of people coming from the Northeast and the upper Midwest to get to better policing jobs. So people aren't necessarily leaving the profession. They're just relocating geographically elsewhere. But one of the things that I see when they say, well, this Gen Z thing, we're never going to crack that. They're different kids or this or that. Well, it's foreign to us because everything old is new again. Like when I watch sports, and I watched a lot of sports over this Christmas break, whether it be collegiate or professional, you see a lot of things where tides are turning, and sports are for young people, particularly young men that are our modern day warriors. And all of these guys are getting in front of the mics when they win something and they say, I give the glory to God. Man, for years, we never heard that. We never heard that. It was self-serving. It was all about their product and imagery and things like that. And I think it's genuine. You got guys painting crosses on their face, under their eyes, and things like that. And I remember how awkward some of these major news stations were, sports stations were, when these guys would say that stuff. You'd see like the interviewer on the sidelines being like, I don't know how to react to that. And I think something similar is happening in law enforcement. I think that, if this trend continues, in my mind, I think you're going to start seeing people saying, how do I serve my country better? I serve my community better. I think locally, and I impact things globally by becoming a cop. And I think that we'll continue to see quality people. It's just they maybe look and act a little different than we do. That's been in the work, but I'm hoping that all of those things matter. Where it does matter more in law enforcement, I think with agencies, is retention and wellness aspect of it. You have to look at things differently than we looked at it. And we do that whole thing. Well, I had to do this, so suck it up, kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know if that necessarily works so much anymore, because, the authority figures in our lives are different than the authority figures in theirs.
Well, and I could say the recruitment part, this wasn't an issue when we were testing, 25 plus years ago. Where we went and worked, there was you'd get 800 or 1,000 people that would come to the test. There was no, you were fighting to get a spot. There was no issue with getting people to show up. And I was on a recruitment team for several years, and, went to the career fairs at college, and,
Right.
did all these different things. And it was same thing. You just pretty much, you figured that you were going to have people come that were interested, especially when you were at colleges that were had very big law enforcement programs. It's like, I don't really have to try that hard here. I just need to show up, put on a uniform, talk to some of these younger kids, and have them fill out a card so we can let them know when we're testing. But
Right.
that's changed. And, you know, I see it in the private sector too, because people just want, they want to be home. They want more things. The workforce dynamic is changing. Now, some of that I think is turning a little bit, because you're seeing companies start to say, hey, we want people back in the office, and there's some pushback against that, but there are some companies that are still doing that. But
Right.
when it comes to like police work, we need to be going after future police officers earlier than just trying to go to the kid that's a sophomore or junior in college that may already be decided about what they're going to do or set in a major or whatever. Yeah, there's going to be those kids that go to school for law enforcement, but it's just like with the trades. You're seeing a big push back now to the trades, and people going into the trades and maybe reconsidering whether or not they're going to do 4 years of college and walk out with $150,000 in student debt.
Right.
So why are we not maybe reaching out to some of those people younger, whether it's through programs, like the police, a lot of agencies, they call them like maybe different things, but, police explorer programs or cadet programs or what they might call them. Go to the high schools and start getting some of these kids involved in that stuff. There's here by us, there's like a vocational training place that's run through the county that opens the door to some opportunities to kids through things like police work or, fire service, like first responder type stuff, or the trades. Don't wait till some of these kids are maybe doing this and say, hey, yeah, we're not saying like don't go to college, but just think about this as a possible, future career. I am not personally, and maybe it's just because of my age, I am not big on the like, oh, let's make TikTok videos and let's show the officer jumping up and down, and all of a sudden he was in sweatpants, now he's in a uniform. Like, okay, I mean, I get it. You're trying to be, I'm sorry, but police departments aren't really known for being too hip and trendy most places,
Mhm.
I want to say. So I see the draw of what you're doing there by like, oh, look, this police department knows how to use TikTok. Okay, that's cool. But what are we really doing to reach out and try to get these people to come in? Like, offer, some ride-alongs, offer more of the like citizen police academies, but open them up to younger people so they can come in, because you might get those people who are like, it's always been kind of interesting to me. I don't know if that's really what I would want to do, but if I could get some exposure to it, I mean, I like to say that that's almost kind of what happened with me. I have no law enforcement in my family. I never really had any intention of getting into police work, but it was only because of a job that I had working for a small park district police department in college that totally like got me interested in it. And here we are, with a full police career. So it's finding some of those people, maybe not through some of the traditional recruitment things, because those kids that are at those schools that are going for law enforcement programs, you pretty much already have them,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if you can get out there more and get to some of these younger kids, and honestly, yes, you want to show that it can be a fun career and you can have a lot of opportunities, and it is a fun career, like, don't get me wrong, but you also can show people some of the challenges and the things that come along with it. When I hear these police tests that are going on here where multiple agencies are putting on a police test and not many people show up, and only a handful of the people that do show up can even pass the power test, you know
Right.
that's problematic. And so maybe that's part of your messaging and getting that out there of like, hey, come work out at our gym, or come, you know what I mean? Like, come do some stuff, or invite some like high school kids to come to the police. There's a local police academy here. Invite a class of high school kids that might be interested in this to come and just watch a couple days of the police academy. Like, see what they do for PT, see what they're doing in the classroom. maybe have them come for a scenario day where you're really watching people who are maybe only, 3, 4, 5 years older than you, are brand new exposure to what these scenarios are, and go, holy cow, this is scary, or hey, this is interesting, and find some other ways to get people involved and get to them earlier, so that you're having them better prepared if they really do want to pursue this career.
One thing, the final note on that from me, from my own perspective and what we've seen over the last 4 years, and compare it to the military. The military's numbers over the last 4 years was really struggling to get recruitment numbers to make that continue to be a credible source. Mm-hmm. That has to do with leadership and also the message that you're sending. When you send a message to people that it's more about the soft pedal equity, inclusion, diversity, all those things are important and have always been a part of the military, even back in the day. Mm-hmm. Like when I was in the 90s, it was probably the most diverse group of people serving that I've ever been around. And if you make the idea of being a servant through protection, like sell the danger, sell the idea like this is risky, you're going to get a lot of people that want to come do it. The military has proven that in just a year's time. People hated when Hegseth went up in front of all these guys and said, hey, here's the deal, this is what we're going to do. But after that, the bottom line numbers of getting new people to come in went through the roof. You had to wait. They were able to say, no, you're not good enough right now. This is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. The police world could do the same thing through a lot of different reasons. Societally, we have to reward police officers that are willing to do that every day and not immediately demonize that. That is a big across the board whole idea of some things we'll talk about down the road here a little bit with how the media portrays us, how academia portrays us, how anybody that has a microphone can get up there, and it's ironic that we're saying that, get up there and just say these cops are doing these things for the wrong reasons. There was just a professional football player that was out there. They were talking up this whole weekend about how he said, like, look, I know a lot of people that are from my world don't agree with the fact that I have left pro sports making millions of dollars to become a police officer for Jacksonville, Florida, but it's not what everybody thinks it is out here. It is way different than you're led to believe, because we've let all sorts of people that look to divide us to crush that. That hurt our retention, or that hurt our recruiting numbers on a level that people can't imagine. Plus, when you sell it, the Georgia State Police, again, we've talked about them before. They're just like, we're not going to apologize for the things that we're going to do to take care of criminals. Bob coming on our show, Bob Christofferson, talking about the things that Oak Brook are doing. Those are the things that people like to see. Hey, I would not feel bad about my son or daughter going into this work, because they're going to protect this officer. And if there's something that happens to them during this process, they're going to be supported and upheld, as opposed to being spit upon and people are, saying that you're this and you're that. Again, it's a societal shift that we need to do that. So police agencies can do all this cool shit, but when the rest of society finally starts getting on board and realizing that, like, hey, setting a woman on fire is not cool. And when you keep letting these guys out and you tie a cop's hand when they want to deal with that, and now the judges feel the pressure of that. Some old lady getting her face smashed in by a board by a guy that was out 72 times, that kind of stuff. Like, the rest of society's waking up to this. Now, the final phase of that, to get good police departments like you have in your good military, is support the police officers in what they do. We'll address the problems as we see them, but this idea that everything that we do is reckless and steeped in racism and oppression is bull.
Right.
So,
and I think the second part of that one, and I know this is just the first one we discussed, but it's not only the recruitment, it's the retention.
Right.
You see it a lot where police agencies, they want to be the new and trendy thing, and they want to be doing all the cool stuff. And sometimes some of these older officers, or people that have been around for a long time, get kind of pushed to the side, because it's like, well, they're just some old dog that they do their job, but maybe they're not as excited about it as everybody else is. And it's like, hey,
they're not as nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And that just comes with the job. I'm sorry. Like, you might not, you still love the job all the way through, but you're a very different person towards the end, and you have to find a way. And I'm not talking about your slugs that are just retired on duty, like not doing anything, but I'm talking about your veteran officers that are up there in, higher double-digit years, and provide opportunities to them to get them to stay around. Those are the kind of people that you want to be going after to try to be FTOs or supervisors, or just, in positions within your department where they can impart some of that knowledge on people. They might not be the same go-getter that they were 25 years ago, but they certainly have the institutional knowledge that it's hard to put a price tag on. So don't make them feel like, hey, we literally have had that where it's like, hey, you're almost trying to like ask that person when you're going to retire because we just want to get that spot open for the new person.
Right.
And that's not the right way to do it. It's
Right.
not the right way to do it. If you need more manpower, you need more manpower, but you don't try to just kind of like, shuffle the veteran officer out the door because you're just worried about getting that new spot. That's not the
Right.
way to do it
Right.
either.
The flashy new toy. Right.
You got to look out for your people that have been around, and you need to take advantage of their knowledge, skills, and experience over, multiple decade careers.
And the new year brings us a couple things security wise that we're going to have to deal with that we haven't before. It's going to be the 25th anniversary of 9/11. And we're seeing a lot of activity out in the world that, folks are flexing, the same kind of folks that were flexing that caused 9/11. A lot of concerns with that, people making statements at certain situations. You got a lot of people out there taking law into their own hands. The other thing is there's a lot of big events that are going to happen this year. It's our 250th birthday. As a nation, we're still a babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, maybe an idea of salvation for a lot of the rest of the world for people to come here. What used to happen is people would come here and be part of our culture and part of like the melting pot. Well, now what we've become is a salad where everybody comes here and you can separate the parts and they can sustain on their own, and it doesn't really come together very well. And it's not a very fulfilling meal at times. When you're usually eating a salad, just like, guys, because I'm making a sacrifice right now. And again, that's cool. Sacrifices are important. But the bottom line is these are big things that are going to task out already poorly staffed agencies, sharing of intelligence, cooperation and things along those lines are key with federal agencies that have access to way better intelligence than we do. But you've got a lot of big cities where people congregate, where terrorists can create the most harm, that are either going to consider, well, we're going to cancel the fun because we don't want to see people bleeding in our streets, or, we'll do it and we'll run the risk of it. And, but we're not going to cooperate with federal authorities. Again, you can't, well, at this level, I don't want to cooperate with them, but if they're handing out free stuff, I want to cooperate with them, like we talked on the other show. So that's a major concern for already strapped agencies, stressed out officers, a public that wants to see us protect them and serve them, but at the same time wants to be able to have the great events in our lives that we did. Now, although I don't know if you remember the bicentennial that we had when we were when I was a kid. It didn't really stack up to much. It was a post-Vietnam hangover. Jimmy Carter was president. I remember we were in school. We were like 1776 to 1976. It was great. And everybody was kind of like, yeah.
I was 2. So
yeah, right. Exactly. I was 12 or around that age. It was sad. I'm hoping that this year can be a little bit better. We are divided quite a bit politically. There are plenty of actors within our own borders right now that I think that would like to undermine that. There are people that have been lifelong citizens that are not going to take pride in that event. These events because of what's going on, and the guys that are and gals that are going to be caught in the middle of that are cops, and that's going to be something.
Right, and agencies need to understand that there's going to be cost associated with this. Like, because of the anniversary of 9/11, there's going to be things that are going to be going on, events. There's probably going to be counter events and protests and things,
right.
and you're going to have to make a commitment to good planning and good staffing. So yes, get ready for that in this coming year. Be prepared for that. Don't spread your people so thin because you failed to prepare that something terrible happens through a lack of planning or a lack of staffing. How many times have we seen that? It's like, well, we're just using just enough to get by. I don't think this, with the severity of this, of 9/11 and what it brings with it, this year is going to be a year to be prepared, to plan, and to make sure that you have the kind of staffing, intelligence sharing, and working in your police networks of other agencies and the feds and everything else is going to be huge.
And prepping your troops for what they're going to see. Right. The protests that we thought we were going to see here early on, some places have, but not everybody has. I do think that, again, I'll go back to my organization that's doing a great job of saying we're going to do, more of the crowd control stuff this year, just have people prepared and ready for what we could possibly see. Now, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but still the effort's being put in to prepare people for stuff that they have probably never seen, like we saw, particularly since 2020 and beyond. Right. But again, that's a big issue. Again, stats, we talk about stats. We just had a chief in DC that had to resign based upon an indication of stats. Another thing that the NPI is talking about is crime stats and public perceptions continue to diverge. Again, the politicization of policing that we've seen in the last 4 years has led a lot of people. Have other chiefs manipulated stats? Absolutely. Every chief out there does that, particularly chiefs, because they work for people that have a reputation to uphold politically for what's going on. The public perception of crime is completely different. How it's portrayed to the public is different as well. We used to see, we didn't hear a lot about certain types of crime. White on black crime, an incessant drumbeat. A lot of people said that all you heard was that, and guilt was taken to heart and things that had happened, and there was retreat in policing. Now you're starting to see a trend with some of that go the other direction. You're seeing some high profile cases make it to social media, but not the mainstream media on the levels that it did with other incidents like we talked earlier about, like in Minneapolis, the ground zero of policing. A lot of people are going, I don't know if I trust your stats. I don't know if I trust what you're portraying. And I clearly know that the mainstream media and forces in play are not being patently honest about what they're seeing. So that's going to, again, create problems for cops on the street. When you get somewhere, people are going to believe what they see and what they've experienced versus whatever the leadership is telling them, whether it's true or not.
Right. Well, and if you start on the public perception part, it kind of goes back to the last one that we talked about, like planning for significant events in 2026. If you start showing more involvement with the community and showing a more of a presence, it's going to carry over into those bigger events for the year. Start when you're having those smaller problems in your community, start showing that you're focused on devoting more resources to those problems and get out in front of some of those things. And then that will naturally build into the bigger events that affect your community down the road, because you might be getting some reps in on the smaller ones to be prepared for the bigger ones. Or maybe your community does have a big, 9/11 event, memorial, something later in the year. And if you have plans in place for the smaller events to manage some of these things and to get out and show the public that you're doing more to protect them, it will naturally flow into those bigger ones that you have as the year goes on.
Right. And people will trust the data that you're presenting to them.
Right.
A previous show that we did, one of our top downloaded shows now, Scott.
I know.
Again, Bob Christofferson, we'll reference him again, the deputy chief of Oak Brook, Illinois. He came on and did a great show for us about how technology is helping them with the things that agencies are facing. But it also creates some challenges that we brought up. Like when I asked Bob about, hey, how is this playing out in courts? How is this playing out with policy? And he's like, we're still in the process of working through some of those things. You see how effective this technology can be, but our policy clearly and the court system, and case law and precedents is not really caught up to that as well. So AI powered tools, all this stuff that we're seeing out there that can really, really help our world, may help with some of the staffing issues, may help with some of the, identifying who the people are and doing what they're doing, tracking them, keeping officers safe, because, ambushes are still a pretty concerning thing for cops. But policy and oversight, how far does it go? How, like everything else, there's pendulum swings. We saw a pendulum swing post George Floyd, and the fact that the criminal was given more benefit of the doubt than everybody else in the process there, particularly the victims. Now you're starting to see it swing back, and we're getting all this technology and everything else that's going to swing back and say, all right, the police are allowed to use these things. How far will that go to be abused? Because guess what? Everybody's a human in this process, by and large, except for the technology. Right. And it's just is a tool for us. Humans react to pressure. Pressure at times can create you to make decisions that are not good, or maybe really good, but they go awry because of things beyond your control. So that's another thing that they feel is pretty important.
Yeah. And it needs to be an important part of your department. You need to be, I know every different department, different size, different funding, has different needs and costs, but the technology part needs to be part of your plan so that you're trying to stay current with those things that are happening. Not only the things that people are using it to commit crimes and to challenge the police with fake videos and all these other things. Your people need to be trained on that kind of stuff as well, or at least put some focus on trying to keep some of your department, in the know on some of the most current technology, whether that's working with your federal partners or whatever. But that is going to be a big piece going into this year for sure.
Yeah, and it brings it into the next one, another big thing that's going to be happening in 2026. They're already talking about the midterms and what that's going to do. There's a lot at stake for a lot of people. A lot of folks feel that the Democrat Party is desperate right now. Their message is tone deaf to a lot of people. Republicans are now authoritarian and, no kings and all that other stuff. What you believe doesn't, really matter in the sense of what is going to happen out there, and that is people are being deeply divided by all this stuff, and it's going to also create a lot of protests and counter protests. Even if you're in a deep blue or a deep red state, people are going to counter protest some of these things that they're seeing. Minneapolis is fighting for its soul through the state of Minnesota because of some of the fraud that occurred up there. There are people that are going to be highly upset on a lot of different levels, and maybe not even along party lines, but it's definitely going to be an interesting year. But for frontline officers to be out there, create at least the idea that although I feel a certain way, that I can live above board, which a lot of other people in this process aren't showing. And then what I mean by that is how it's being portrayed in the media and then social media of how judges are conducting themselves, as well as we know our politicians conduct themselves. As police officers, we have to live at a much higher level, even though they all look down upon us like we're just this cog in the wheel. I go through a lot more to become a police officer than somebody that says, hey, you know what, I'll run for office and now I can be your state representative and then I can run for senator and then I can run for governor. Mm-hmm. There's no psych test for that. There's no, and if you fail it, nobody publishes it because we just learned that about our past president, right. Those kind of things. We as cops have to remain above board in supporting people's rights to do what we got to do. Even if these people are screaming, let's get rid of the police. Mm-hmm. And death to cops kind of stuff. That's nothing new for our profession, but it's definitely one of the ones in this new year because all elections moving forward, don't you think, Scott, are going to be like this in our lifetime?
Yeah, they will be. And it's just about preparation. We've talked about it on multiple levels here and in multiple scenarios, but it's preparation. You got to be ready for this stuff. These things are coming. Make sure your people are ready. Make sure that you're doing the right things to protect your community. Make sure that you're doing the right thing to protect people's rights to do the things that they want to do. But at the same time, be ready to handle those situations that do get out of control or become unlawful, because that's where a lot of these things go sideways. And then you get caught with your pants down looking like you didn't know how to handle this and you didn't prepare. And then it just spins back onto the whole like community trust, community perception thing of like, what is this agency doing? They can't handle these things. They knew it was coming. We knew it was going to be a hot button issue. So make sure you're ready.
And then the final thing is just, again, in the information age here, the digital age, mis and disinformation becomes core public safety challenges. And this is AI. Again, deep fakes, all that stuff can be that. You see like a video, and I don't know, I'm not the smartest technology guy, but I look at it and go, that is totally AI. As soon as I look at it, I know it's totally AI. Some of the more obvious things are like how, a person's hand disappears, shows up at a different spot. But as the NPI has referenced, like a teenager can get access to this. A lack of knowledge can create a whole lot of emotion. I mean, we saw in our lifetime, Ferguson, Missouri, how much mis or disinformation was put out there that tore that city apart and tore the nation apart. And our leaders, in some ways, in order to stay in power, were willing to use that to prove a point so they could get more out of what they wanted. As cops, we have to be very aware of that when we're dealing with people face to face, because where this all breaks down is when an officer goes up to somebody and deals something with them. Can't tell you how many times I walked up to a car and somebody goes, oh, I know why you're doing this to me. For the first half of my career, I never heard that. I never heard somebody say that to me. And then now it's just part of the playbook. Agencies need to do a good job of being able to control some of this misinformation, getting out in front of it, staying on top of it. Now, how do we staff to that? Again, we're not going to be going with police officers that understand the work in the street and what happens. We have to rely on people that know more about that stuff, but won't also demand these high benefits and great pay and weird hours and things like that. So a lot of civilian employees will be hired to do that are really only experienced with a lot of this stuff through the modern education system, which clearly doesn't do a good job of portraying police officers in a positive light in a lot of ways. I remember, speaking of which, we talk about tie-ins here. When I used to try to run an internship program, we would, a lot of the interns that applied for our program would put their professors on it. We'd call the professors, and one of the questions we'd say is, hey, do you think that this person would like to make a career of law enforcement? And I lost count of the amount of times that the professor went like this, God, I hope not. And I was like, you're a criminal justice professor. What are you saying? You know what I mean? Those are the kind of things that, we're up against for that. So you have people that already have come into some of this work with a proven agenda, but no real street experience as to understanding how misinformation can really get a group of people ginned up. And, it's going to definitely be a challenge as we move forward to say, that was a deep fake. That was this, but what's really sad is when your own government's engaging in some of that behavior, and actually just recently got rid of the laws that allowed the CIA and other groups to, use propaganda and misinformation against its own citizens.
Right.
I mean, we're up against a lot, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be considered for cops.
Yeah, and it's going to be very important for agencies to stay ahead of that. And when you run into those kind of situations, to make sure that you're clarifying for people, hey, this is real, this is not real. Let's explain to you what's going on here, and letting people know. I mean, we've talked about this before, that a lot of times law enforcement's behind the curve when it comes to getting information out and clearly articulating things to the public about what's happening. But this is going to have to be a main focus, so that you don't let something that's bullshit spiral into something that becomes a major issue for your community or agency.
Absolutely. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know it was a lot. We talked about a lot of things. Obviously, the thing that matters most to us as line level cops is the recruiting issue, the workforce level stuff, because that's the people that can make my life better, can make my life worse, that I have to go in and face for 10 hours every day under some very stressful conditions, and some, forging moments with folks that, there's generational gaps, there's, diversity gaps, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's probably why we spent the most time on that, because this is the thing, when you listen to the show, we're just talking from our experience as line level cops, whether it be supervisory or just doing the job. So, to wrap on that, for 2026, one of the trends that I'm seeing that I'm really liking, Scott, is I think we're moving into a post Kelsey world. And I'm really looking forward to that, to be honest with you. That means the Chiefs, their run's done. That means that maybe I don't have to watch Taylor Swift on a television screen every single time there's a football game going on, because people wanted to highlight the Kansas City Chiefs. But I'm really looking for that. And then the childish outbursts by Travis have manifested themselves in not being able to catch a pass when you need to. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
I don't know how to compete with that. I mean, I guess I should have gone first. I don't know. I'm looking forward to a year of hopefully people. I mean, I can't make any good sports analogies like that, but I'm looking forward to another good year of hopefully being able to do this and laugh and joke and get in touch with people on here, and increase the network of people that we've gathered over these many years, and just for health and wellness of everybody's families, and the safety of police officers out there and people that are hopefully going to face some real challenges this year. I mean, again, I'm not quite in the same mix as you guys anymore, but I see that stuff that's going on, and I see that stuff that's brewing. So hopefully, we have a good, things improve with the economy. People can afford houses and better
gasoline
and all those good things, especially me with my fleet of cars. But
right.
Yeah, I think we'll be in for a good year. It's, don't like the doom and gloom, and hopefully we get through everything safe.
Here we get to celebrate a significant birthday, and you should have gone first, Scott, because mine seems so shallow now and just stupid. But anyway,
my goal is to learn more. Okay, here. My goal is to learn more military history to be able to have more intelligent conversations with Sean about World War II.
A poor man's Victor Davis Hanson. That's what I fancy myself.
World War II for dummies. I'm going to start reading that next week.
Who are the Allied powers? Who are the Axis powers? Anyway, but yeah, well, hopefully you have a great 2026 as well. And if you got any things you would like to see us cover in the year, please let us know. We always ask you to reach out. There's a texting feature in the show notes. There's email options for our website. Chris closes it out for us weekly, even when he's not here. He's here in spirit. Chris has obviously always got some schemes, some plans. Yeah, he was going to name the art center in our policing hometown after himself, the Pradle Sherwin Art Center. Anyway, but Chris, you can take us home, man.